Are you ready? Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought I thought you were still waiting to set things up. All right. Um, sorry, I was busy looking through the next stages here. But going back to Sheldon, Sheldon is recalling his time here as he starts thinking to himself um, out loud on the road. You can see Dorian kind of look at him as Sheldon seems to be stroking his beard. And Dorian says, "Older man, what are you thinking about?" And Dorian uh, looks over to him and he says, "This old road, I I've heard of many things about it. It is said a long time ago, a dragon named Ashadalan brought ruin across this land. With terrible fire, he blazed down this entire plains." As he points to the horizon, to the very end of this gray colored expanse. Uh, he calls this area the Ashen Plain, a lifeless area. It could have been no other dragon but that one. Um, and Dorian kind of asks him again, uh, "What did you call this place, old man? What was the name of the dragon?" Uh, and Sheldon once again repeats the name, and he says, "Ashardalon." And as the name rings out in his voice, um, you see this gray cloud kind of roll over a few distant mountains, threatening to cast the entire area in this gray shadow. Um, you recognize this as a gust, or rather a front of inclement weather, and well, um, Dorian uh, questions himself, maybe unable to figure out why that name means something to him. Uh, and as he thinks about it for a few moments, as you are trudging along, um, you pass a couple trees, and Dorian uh, takes a moment to bend down and pick up a sliver of grass. As he examines it, uh, he says, "Yes, I've I was raised, well, as a child at least, raised to believe the elves knew something about this land. That their connection to it was more than just old stories and myths. Ashadalon came up a few times. I never understood why the elves would worship something so destructive, but it seems I do not have any of the answers." Um, Dorian looks to you and says, "Hmm, ever the perceptive one. Me family's from Neverwinter. Came from a long line of carpenters and housemakers. And I found myself to be, well, not taking with the career of putting stone on stone. However, if it is about breaking into places, it is more of my thing. No, I kid. Uh, you know, being from the north, it's always been difficult for someone without a name. And as Dorian looks off to the distance, he sees the same gray cloud, and he asks, uh, "How much time you reckon do we have before that thing comes upon us?" Sure. Go ahead and give me a nature check. The answer comes quite easily to Kavan, um, or sorry, Kavan. Um, and you know this front to be anywhere within 4 to 5 hours of reaching your location. Um, recalling some information that he was given, Dorian replies, and he says, "It should take us about 5 or 6 hours to get to the Citadel. We better make haste." And at that, he seems pretty eager to make haste uh, and make less chit chat. Fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and make everyone make a survival check. See if they are able to make it on time here, at least before the storm front comes and threatens to soak everyone in rainwater. 16, a 7, and a 14 is plenty for a group of 3 making their way through the countryside. Um, you spend about 3 hours going through the old road, taking it to the very end of where it is. Um, at about 2 hours in, the old road is nothing more than just a beaten down dirt path. Uh, the road has slowly changed from graveled and measured to winding and, well, uh, pretty much grass. Um, at this point, uh, you realize that there are more twigs and trees that seem to have not made the transition from winter to spring. These bushes and trees, they are utterly wrecked. They have no buds, uh, crumbling branches, and underneath each of them are littered these broken branches with bark kind of peeling off, similar to one of the bushes you encountered in town. Um, I think you also noticed this just being a ranger. But these twigs and trees, they seem to be yet growing, as if the threat of uh, inclement weather, dry bark, as well as the lack of leaves and buds, were of no obstacle to their growth. Um, Sheldon takes your concern to heart, and he says, and he looks to the skies. Um, if you think this is a bad omen, perhaps we must steady ourselves before making it into the underground. Before we go, I insist, allow me to make a prayer. Um, Sheldon makes his way to the bottom of the tree, um, and as he addresses his god, as he stares into the bough of this tree, uh, he asks that the two of you kneel alongside him. Uh, and as he motions uh, to the tree, he says, Darian, I know this isn't your thing, but if you would join me, as well as you, Kavan. Um, as you join Sheldon in his prayers, he begins to speak. And when he speaks it with the well practiced um, prose of someone who has done this before, someone who has prayed to Eldath. And he says, and he begins, Oh, green goddess of mother, of life, of the grove, may you keep us under your mighty branches, safe and protected against that which may harm those who seek only good. May the peace of your waters fill us with life. Um, and as he stands there for a moment, a wind passes. Sheldon continues looking, gesturing towards the sky underneath this dead tree. And suddenly something snaps. A crack of a branch about 10 feet away from your position. You look about you, and you see nothing but twig bushes. Sensing the incongruity of the situation, but perhaps less inclined to throw away his uh, belief. Sheldon replies uh, reluctantly, and he says, I do not promise to know what my goddess intends, but I know if she gives no sign, it only means we must prove ourselves. Um, Sheldon says, uh, it can't hurt. Let me whisper a prayer to Saloon if she has this. And he takes out this book, uh, a book that doesn't seem to have necessarily any religious significance. Inside of it are two hidden compartments. As he flips through one of them, on one side it looks like there is a compartment for potentially spell components, and as he flips up that flap, he takes a bit of silver uh, in the shape of what looks like to be a couple melted coins. Uh, and as he takes it out, he rubs it in his hands, raises it in his hands, and applies it to the sky. Uh, and he says, here I beg of you, if no god will listen, if no patrons will help us, and we become lost, I ask you, Saloon, to guide us out. Should we find nothing but death and madness, at least let one of us survive. Um, and at that, uh, he's going to make a religion. Um, and uh, I am going to say in this case, he has the help of someone maybe who is at least a believer. Uh, and as his answer is perhaps heard, uh, off in a distance, peeking through the dark clouds, is this small sliver of this paled out gray spherical body. And as it rises, a sliver of that light shines through. casting the area in this kind of milky white glow. Um, and as that image of Sheldon standing, Dorian dutifully kneeling, and you offering a word of perhaps guidance as well. A beam is struck in the party, and Sheldon's silvery pendant that he holds in his hand begins to glow with a bit of eerie moonlight, and it casts this glow in about a 5-foot radius around him. And he says, "We must be truly blessed." Dorian gets up from his kneeling, moves over towards the silvery pendant, and he says, "Yes, this is what I've heard." Um, with that being said, uh, I believe Dorian looks at you and kind of makes a smirk, and he says, "Huh, adventuring sure pays the bill sometimes, but I'd be lying if I didn't say, well, that I enjoyed it a bit. Quite a bit. What we find down there may not just be agents of evil that your goddess intends for you to wipe out. And well, I too fancy a secret treasure or two as well. But suffice to say, a bounty, a simple bounty, may satisfy my needs. Plus, as he kind of gestures to Sheldon, he says, if If you fall down, who's gonna pick you up? Um, and at that, Sheldon says, I have been under the branches of many trees. Of course, I'm also speaking metaphorically. I do not know much about your god, but if she listens, then maybe there is a path forward for me. And clearly, in this case, there is something at the bottom of this ravine. Um, Sheldon begins to move towards the hill that kind of covers up part of the landscape to the west. As it slopes downward, you realize it is really only a couple feet before you can really see the entire ravine uh, sprawled across the landscape to the land below. At the bottom of the valley, this ravine opens up um, across maybe oof, 20 miles or so. Um, and it is a sharp drop at a certain point. Um, Sheldon says, the path forward has shown itself to be dimly lit and with many obstacles and ill omens. I have not seen or encountered a tougher fight ahead. Um, and Sheldon kind of smiles, um, sensing, perhaps, and in his own maybe twisted logic, that uh, he savors um, some kind of difficulty uh, in order to achieve redemption. And, well, I think just as an insight into his character, it looks Sheldon uh, might be more concerned about that than his own health. Um, Sheldon replies, uh, this time, uh, maybe with a little more gusto. And he says, I have wandered this land for far too long without serving someone or something. This is a sign for me to steel myself, a sign to press forward. against the dock. I will be made again. And he seems to signal to the end of a conversation. Maybe not necessarily the one you're having with him, but maybe one that he's been having with himself. Um, and he begins to walk down the dirt path towards the Sunless Citadel. Um, Out of character, uh, I think that is a good question. Like, do you know do you want these characters uh, to go back to town, or is this more of like a suggestion? Sure. Um, by gold, do you mean the bounty or because as of yet there has been no no finding of lost children or at least lost family members or lost signet ring. Uh, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. Are you trying to do this as a single player? Hello, still there? Yes. Uh, let me ask again. Are you still trying to do this as a group of team of three, or is this something that you'd rather play? This is just out of character. Hmm. Hmm. Gotcha. Okay. Um, it seems like they are pressing on, uh, whether or not. I think it seems that uh, they know that you are chosen. Or not. They seem both eager to. I think in Dorian's case, make the bounty. In Sheldon's case, maybe to find another uh, well god to worship. Uh, he replies back and he says, "Yes, yes, she is." Um, the mention of the tree seems to uh, maybe stop Sheldon in his tracks, and he thinks about it for a moment. He says, "A vampiric tree. I know, no mention of what to do in this case. At one point, it is life, but at another, it is a warped facsimile." And he seems to struggle with it as he thinks more and more. Yeah, Sheldon agrees and he says, "Yes, I believe you're right about many of these things. Yet to come to a conclusion about how I feel about this tree. If the reports are true, this thing is unique and worthy, even, of being explored or studied." Um, Sheldon nods along as you are speaking to him. And I think uh, this is probably a good moment to do an insight check, as your words of good intention um, seem to evoke positive emotion, definitely on the surface, as he brings himself to a small smile as well. But go ahead and give me an insight check. Maybe you can dig deeper into uh, this Um, I think 9 is not quite enough, but I think yeah, I think this is if you'd like, uh, this is inspiration. So you may choose to use it here or save it for later, as your character is one who is good, and probably and this is you kind of doing that, trying to invoke good in others. Um, so you may choose to save it for now or use it on this check to get advantage. Sure. And I think with that 9 as an insight check, um, you see the brightness kind of appear on his eyebrows. This kind of this small flicker of of softness kind of washes over his brow, um, and Sheldon almost uh, he catches himself, uh, and seems like he has refocused his eyes now towards the ravine. And as he walks towards it, he says, "It is certainly within possibility, but I've lived a long life, and I know that there is a difference between what must be required of someone. Sometimes an old frayed rope breaks." Uh, as he peers off in the distance, I think he can see that there is a tree, maybe about a couple hundred yards away, and on that tree is a rope dangled over the ravine. Um, it certainly looks like it could be that. From that distance, I think Sheldon's able to see, and he remarks, "Huh, a rope established already. It seems there have been recent visitors here. If that is the case, we may not be too late to find and follow their trail. We should hurry." Uh, as he makes double haste now towards the tree. Um, Dorian uh, recalls from his map, and he says, uh, "Yeah, I believe it's only about a 60-foot drop." And as you get closer to it, you indeed can see some parts of the underground poking up um, in the darkened skies now. I believe you see that the rope goes down about 60 or 80 feet, uh, with the very top of this kind of column of stone uh, revealing itself in dim light. It seems to be the top of a tower. Past that, you see a staircase leading down. Um, Dorian points to it and he says, "Seems like quite a drop. I hope this rope holds." And he begins to make his way to the rope. Um, when he puts his hand on it to test it, he gives it a quick few tugs. Um, and as he puts more and more weight on it, the rope seems to hold and support his weight. Uh, he is going to attempt to investigate this rope. Um, and I think with that, he spends about 5 or 6 minutes testing it and examining it. And he says, Kavan, what do you make of this? By all means, this seems like it is only a week old. Someone has been down here very recently. This should hold our weight. And with that, if you can see this area revealed, I believe you should see the entirety of the column with your dark vision. Is that apparent to you? Is it showing on the map? Um, that is, the rest of that area is essentially either darkness or rubble. So this is the first area that is revealed to you. To the left and to the right, you see there's just small hills of rubble and the very top of the citadel itself. So you see this, beyond the column, maybe 60 feet below it, the very top of it, see the parapets of this sunken city. You see towers as well as fortification. All of which seem to have been somewhat preserved, intact for the most part. Uh, in order to get to the citadel itself, it seems you will have to descend this column. Um, Dorian looks to Sheldon, and Sheldon looks back. And Dorian says, hmm. And he tests the rope again, and he climbs onto it, and kind of kind of boldly, he speaks and he says, "Well, this rope isn't going to climb itself." And he begins descending. Uh, and Sheldon kind of, kind of uh, surprised by this act of brashness, he looks to you and he says, uh, "Oi, that boy's gonna get himself killed one of these days." Um, as Dorian begins to climb down, he says, "Hey, hey, when I get to the bottom of this, I'm going to light a torch." And you can already hear him kind of grasping the rope, kind of making that. And he is slowly beginning to descend. Um, your concerns are assuaged as after about 10 seconds or so, you hear the sound of footsteps hitting the ground. Uh, and as they do, you can, from your dark vision, actually see these piles of bones kind of disturb themselves. Uh, sorry, it should be bones and rubble. You see maybe a gleaming femur amongst a pile of rocks to get disturbed and see these rats essentially just hop out of them. When you do, though, they seem to immediately disperse. Some of them crawling down the staircase, others climbing off the sides and away from the surface. It seems any sort of light or sound seems to have dispersed them away. And as they disappear and out of view, behind the column and down the stairs, uh, it gives Dorian a moment of fright. Uh, and you can hear him say, "Oi, nasty buggers!" And he immediately takes out his sword. Um, but as they disappear, he puts his sword back with a shh, and you can hear him fumbling around in his pack for a torch. And Sheldon, up next to you, he says, "What's going on down there? I heard something." Um, Dorian finds the torch and he begins to strike flint uh, to spark it with a few naps of his tools. Kind of go like um, sparks fly and begin burning. And as he raises his torch and sweeps around with like a the column and even parts of the citadel are revealed to him as he moves to the edge here. He looks across the citadel and he says, my. The stories aren't true. Fantastic. Um, I think I think you would recognize that the staircase would take you there. Um, However, it would not take you there quickly. The staircase that you see before you is jagged and uh, leveled in such a way that walking across it and down and above, um, it seems to be on different levels. Um, it would be no simple task uh, to run or walk quickly across the stairs. Rather, you would most likely have to take your time ascending, being careful every step of the way. So yeah, this is it. Kind of wraps like from this point of view. It's I think it's difficult to kind of imagine this being a 3D shape, but yeah, there's obviously the top part. There's a couple platforms below that. Um, for example, that one there, and this one down here. But essentially, it is just one staircase after another. So, uh, um, taking this to heart, Dorian slows down his descent as he begins moving down the staircases. Uh, there is a tact and slowness and carefulness that he begins to take as he starts walking down these stairs. As he immediately recognizes that he must contend with this environment in a much more careful way. He is able to do it slowly and successfully, um, but he is unable to go about it in a fast way. And after about 30 seconds, he makes his way to the bottom of this first staircase, and he is already uh, seemingly peeved at how slow he must go. And he yells up to where you are, and he says, "It's mostly safe down here. Just gotta maintain my footing. Um, that's a good question. I think it's not actually written in the books. Um, maybe a better way to describe this in a way that signals to the players that this isn't super dangerous, as long as you're going about it slowly and carefully, is to just say that, you know, their staircase is a uh, I don't know if it actually imposes a check. Looking at this, I don't believe any of this requires a DC check or counts as difficult terrain. Uh, so yeah, this is just simply Dorian taking his time, and you can tell, I think, by the way he's going through this, that this is just a long way down. Sure. Um, I'll say Kavan is here at this point, and well, let me describe to you what the module has in store. As the party descends, a fortress emerges from the darkness. The subterranean citadel, though impressive, seems long forgotten. Out across the underground wasteland, you see lightless windows and cracked crenellation, leaning towers, as well as fallen. Everything is quiet, but a cold breeze blows from below, and along with it brings the scent of dust and a faint trace of rot. Um, as you kind of speak to that and aim it in the directions of your party, Dorian on the very last platform for the ground um, can be heard replying, and he says, and he seems to kick something, and from a distance you can hear it's kind of like a soft thud, and as it falls down the column side, you can hear Dorian say, Yeah, it just seems like a couple animals fell down this ravine. That's probably it. And I think you could definitely sense the trepidation in his voice, as he's unsure if that's the only reason. Sure. Sheldon leads behind you by about 15 feet as you climb the second to last set of stairs. And as he makes his way down, he doesn't seem to talk much, uh, at least not to you. You can be heard whispering something, and it seems to just be a small prayer. Uh, and it sounds like he's saying, "As I go into the dark, let the waters fill me with strength. As I prepare to go into the dark, let your waters fill me with strength." Um, in maybe about 3 minutes, you are able to climb the last set of stairs and make your way finally to the tower, or at least the courtyard in front of a tower. Excellent, nice. Kavan does so, and the brightness is kind of washed out across this area, outlining things in, well, I mean, describe to me what color you would like. Fantastic. And it seems to, looks like outline things if they fail a certain dexterity saving throw. So, one sec, because I believe you see something immediately apparent in the area, and that is, well, multiple rats. I don't think necessarily these are rats you have to necessarily concern yourself with. Very much so. Uh, from rats from the size of, I would say, small to tiny, are revealed and cast in this bluish silvery light. Uh, and as immediately as that spell is cast, they begin scattering uh, to far off corners to escape the unearthly light currently revealing. They make these as they crawl away. Um, Dorian takes this as an accurate description as he replies, "Hmm, I think you're onto something here." Um, he begins to start kicking and testing the ground with some bones. He steps up above onto the courtyard proper, uh, and well, he looks with a bit of concern as he is certainly out of his element. Looking to you, he says, "If I didn't know better, I'd say this area was trapped. How do you think we should proceed?" Um, and he says, "Yeah, well, I'll see what I can do." And Dorian begins searching the ground here. You do so, and this will help him in that to that end. And let me describe the area to you. The narrow stairs empty into a small courtyard, apparently the top of what was a crenulated battlement. The buried citadel has sunken so far into the earth that the battlement is now level with the surrounding floor. That floor stretches away to the north and south, composed of a layer of treacherous crumbled masonry. This reaches to an unknown depth. And to the west, a tower stands on the west side of a courtyard, the very beginning structure to what must be Sunlit Citadel. As Dorian explores the crumbled masonry around, uh, he's able to discover that there is something interesting, uh, something that catches his eye across the courtyard. And I will mark it here with a 10 by 5 square. Dorian succeeds in finding what looks like to be some kind of trap door. It opens inward, and as he takes a python out of his pack, he presses it against the covering of this trap door. And as he kind of inches it downward, you can hear like a eh, eh, and he discovers what looks like to be a trap door that goes into a pit before you. Um, he then remarks, "That fairy fire of yours might be useful." Uh, as he has clearly discovered a trap here with the help of your. For a split second, it washes the entire area in this blue moonlight, casting what seems like to be two goblin skeletons and another half-eaten goblin in this pale blue light. Immediately, you sense that this could be the source of that rot and smell of death. In the next instant, something giant and furry dashes out from beneath the half-eaten corpse, and you see a giant rat at the bottom. Oop. This rat is awash in that blue glow, and it immediately dashes to the sides of the pit, attempting to crawl up of it and escape the pale light. It makes a sound as if uh, your light has revealed it and upset it. It is making its way to climb out. Sure, go ahead and roll initiative as this thing is attempting to climb out of the pit. And possibly attack party. You're good. I'm going to, for Tuesday, make sure I add the macro for everybody, which lets you select a token and click roll initiative without going into character. So that will something I'll have ready for next session. Oh, I got it. I actually did not discover that until well into a year of DMing on Roll20. So I am very glad that I learned that. All right. The giant rat seems like it will be able to act first, but I will put you here at the lip of the trapdoor. As it scurries or attempts to scurry out, uh, it is able to make its way to the top. And as it comes to the top, I believe you said you wanted to attack it. Was this a prepared action? Okay. Mark off your reaction for the round and go ahead and give me an attack roll. I don't believe you actually have to mark that you've spent your reaction, as long as you've kept track of it. So you don't actually have to mark it down. I just it's a just a turn of phrase. Um, I simply mean just remember that you've used your reaction this turn as you've prepared your action preview. Mhm. Correct. I don't believe a 10 hits. As the giant rat scrabbles to the top, it makes its way and begins biting at your feet. Just as your scimitar comes down to lop its head off, the rat dashes forward with a strike. And in the meantime, dodges scimitar slash. With a 14, um, it bites angrily with a at your feet uh, and misses as it bites onto your boot potentially. Uh, Fails to pierce it. Up next, Sheldon sees the danger in front of him um, and steels himself. Makes a attack uh, with a warhammer. The fairy fire is still currently working on. Then 14 hits. Out of the darkness, this rat came uh, above the ground level, um, and Sheldon sees it and he is able to single it out uh, with his warhammer coming down to squash this thing. He deals 2 points of damage to it as he smashes it against its tail. Uh, as he says, "Back, you beast!" Um, the giant rat takes a hit on the tail, and it makes this sound as it becomes injured, but not quite bloodied. Kavan, it is your turn. As your teammate has just swung and hit this ferocious giant rat. He does so with scimitar out. Go ahead and roll. 26 and 17 both hit. Roll damage on both. Very nice. Kavan, with his scimitar out, does not falter this time. With an 8 and a 5, and 2 slashes, each which would have been almost deadly uh, on this rat, he carves into the rat, dealing 8 and 5 points of damage. The rat, taking the damage, dies and succumbs to its injuries. It lays there, motionless. Uh, sure, yeah. Uh, as that blue light fades, uh, you no longer can see the bottom of the pit. or at least they can't. Um, Dorian replies, "Yeah, you're right. It seems they're always changing here down in the dark. Predator, prey. Hmm. Seems like you can handle yourself with a sword." Uh, Dorian thinks about it for a moment. Looking down in the pit, uh, he doesn't imagine anything valuable could be down there. He does say, "Hmm, I don't fancy digging through treasure or corpses. I am here mostly for the bounty." Uh, and he walks towards the door and he says, "What do you make of this? You think it's locked, or you think it's trapped? Must be either one of the two." Sure. Um, you you've never seen you have not yet seen Dorian fight or prove himself to be a better fighter than he is a sneak thief. However, um, as he comes upon the door to inspect it, you can see that he doesn't necessarily have the tools uh, needed to break into a place. That his tales of of roguery probably just that. Uh, he is potentially out of his depth here. When he makes his way to the door, he simply inspects it. Satisfied with inspection, uh, he says to you, "Hmm, doesn't seem trapped." Sure. Go ahead and give me a perception check. 21 is quite good. When Kavant makes his way to the door, sidestepping the trap, of course, um, with very keen eyes, he sees and peers into the inner workings of the stone here. Sheldon, from the back, also remarks on it, and he says, "This is no stone I've heard of or seen of. All I've read about is, well, of my own people's make. This this was built by the hands of elves." And at that, he seems to suggest some uniqueness, the inner workings of the stone here, um, which you've already picked up on. On the outside of this door, you see that it is simply a wooden one that seems to kind of bend a little bit to the to uh, adhere to the form of this circular tower. Um, when you come upon it, you don't sense or see anything that could be trapped in this door. To do so would be to put mechanisms into the walls that would not fit nor belong there. Uh, you do so, and you open the door to the inside of a circular tower, and a somewhat grisly scene in front of you. The bodies of three goblins lay in pools of blood, one of which has a spear, uh, looks like impaled right through it. It seems there was a conflict here, quite recent as well. The spear actually looks of a larger size than what a goblin would use. Um, the Dorian speaks up. He says, "Yes, this smells of interlope. If I didn't know better, someone came here with a similar purpose to ours, perhaps even to reach the grove itself and commit whatever acts of darkness they saw fit." Sure. You take a step forward and you see exactly as I described earlier, three dead goblins who seem to have had their belongings ransacked them. You see that they are indeed light on gear and belongings. And as Sheldon brings up the rear, he immediately sees the scene as well. He remarks with "Oy, a grisly plot happened." Um, Dorian goes to examine some of the goblins for himself, and he says, "Hey, these little buggers put up a fight, didn't they?" And you, I think, Kavan, would recognize that there are two exits to this room: a door to the northwest, a door leading to the southwest. But in addition, as you've been keeping a keen eye on the stonework here, you notice there seems to be a loose brick on the southern side. On the wall, a piece of stone seems to be jutting out. This this is indicative of something, well, that was made to be there on purpose. Uh, uh, I I'll interrupt you as you look upon the stone. It looks like it can be pushed on the left side or pulled from the right. It seems to function as some sort of lever by its section. Um, it doesn't seem to be depressed so much as jutting out, but if it did have a side, um, it seems like it is more pushed in on the right side. Um, Dorian sees it uh, now that you mention it, and as he inspects it too, he sees that this stone doesn't belong here. I wonder what would happen if I'd pull it. Sheldon looks a little wary of it, and he says, "Fool, you seem to be out of your element here. If you're looking at that stone, and you're already asking if you should pull it or not, well, you probably shouldn't. Again, I've seen you stare down the barrel of, well, many an empty pit. Uh, and he mentioned, um, remember that time you fell into, well, the gutter? The time that you were chasing a tiny squirrel who had stolen one of your grapes. Ugh. Um, and at this, Dorian seems to get flustered and he says, "Well, look, it took my grape and it ran off of it, careless about how much I paid for it, and careless too if I'd been eaten properly that week. That school deserved much worse than what I gave it." Um, I think looking from the outside, you know that the vast majority of the city that has not sunken in or been destroyed in one way or another uh, lies to the northwest of your position. To the southwest, there still seems to be structures, but not quite as many. They seem to be fewer. Um, the party agrees, and they begin heading towards the northwest. And out of character, um, we can call it there. Pick up back on Tuesday. Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.